Hello, I think I'm live. Hello, this is Yukiko Amaya, and welcome to this week's Facebook Live, Goddess and Energy Coming Alive. I am Yukiko Amaya. I am a priestess of Goddess and priestess of Avalon. I am also an energy healer, a shamanic practitioner, and an embodied empowerment coach. So this is a series that I created. And initially, I just created this series to as a conversation between some of the people that I really loved working with. And this is now my fourth. This is now my fourth Facebook Live. And today's guest is Eka Kapiotis, and she is a wonderful energy healer. And as I looked at all of these people coming on and the conversations I was having, I realized that I wanted to continue this conversation. Sometimes I'll be by myself and other times with guests, because I feel that it's so important right now to start to expand our awareness and knowing and to inquire. I don't have all the answers to anything, but I am very curious about inquiring into what this world is that we live in, who we are, what are the things that we sense and feel, especially when we are connected with nature, when we are connected with each other in a circular fashion, when we create a circle and sit together, when we are in communion and connection with the animals and the birds, the earth, the water, the fire, air, all the elements. And, it's ever since I was young, I felt that there was a world behind the world that was evident, and that everything is alive. I still feel that. I went away from that for a while because of education and, the societal norms and all the socializations that we go through as children in order to fit into whatever family system or social system that we are born into, or the educational systems. I was also very fortunate to move around quite a bit when I was a child. So I was born and grew up partially in Japan, but when I was 7, my family moved to Australia. And suddenly I was thrown into a completely different social, educational, linguistic, cultural agreement. And coming back to Japan, I could start to see that different places had different agreements, that reality wasn't so concrete, that it's an agreement between people. I then came to the United States as an exchange student when I was 16 for a year, and that was an incredible experience in rural Pennsylvania. After graduating from university in Japan, I went to live in Paris, France. And again, there was this understanding of a completely different agreement and the way of seeing reality and a way of connecting with each other, creating a community, a society. So what happens when we step beyond those agreements? And these are things that really, really fascinated and interested me. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you today's special guest. Her name is Eka Kapiotis, and she's an amazing, wonderful healer. I think she's spent the past 40 years or something like that of her life practicing energy and healing. And she took her energy healing work into hospitals and revolutionized care work. So really, taking it into the mainstream areas. And her work with dolphins, aligning in the continuum of nature and subtle energies within and around us, is really powerful. And we'll be asking her to share with us some of what she experienced. And Eka believes that we are all healers. This is something that I also truly believe in. We are all healers. And Eka empowers women to release old patterns and enjoy living from their inner knowing and wisdom. So let's bring Eka on. Hey there.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I just loved hearing your story again. You have the most remarkable story. Um,
I think in a way we all do, we all do. Because I feel that when we're born, when we're babies, and we haven't been socialized yet, we have this amazing capacity of sensing. And as children, we have that, don't we? And then, I mean, what's some of the memories that you have as a child, like, kind of connecting with nature? Do you
you know,
remember?
actually, the minute you were talking about connecting, about how you sensed that everything was connected, I immediately went back to this experience that I had when I was probably maybe two, three.
Mhm.
And it was springtime and just being out in the grass and all the things that are growing out in the yard now because we don't do lawns like normal grass lawn and all those wild things and the sunlight dappling in like it has been like it's doing on you right now.
Yeah.
And it just seemed so magical and so incredible. And yes, so I loved what you said about that. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're listening to us right now, please say hello in the comments box. And if you have experiences as a child, when you were able to, or even now, those moments when you're able to kind of see, what's it in Dorothy there, when you see behind the curtain, you you see the wizard, that you see the energy that's behind um, what we tend to call reality as grown-ups. We have an agreement that reality is a certain way. But let us know some of your experiences and also where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you and join in the conversation.
And Yukiko, we might actually have a little bit of a similarity in that my mother was French, my father was Greek, and we came to the United States when I was a year old. And I always felt that we didn't fit in, and I know a lot of people have that feeling, but it was just a sense of how things were in our house was very different and how things were organized. And
Uh-huh.
in fact, I say sometimes that it really helped me on the energy path because my parents were very, romantic and not rational. And so I didn't have to fight through all the, it must be scientific, kind of
Nice.
limitations that other people were. In fact, I embraced science, actually. I just love science. And so it was really more something that came from me than something that was imposed on me externally. But
Right.
the way you were talking about your experience of really having been immersed, in at different times in your life and all these different forms of reality, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it's one of the things that when I was studying with Don Miguel Ruiz, who's a Toltec shaman, and he always called it the agreement, you know, and um, and the way that we think of reality and the way that we think of ourselves in that reality, which really limits us a great deal, um, is based on the agreements and socialization of whatever culture that we have been brought up in. And that it's that's why traveling is also wonderful, because when you travel into a different culture for those first few days when you're very uncomfortable, right? You get to
Right.
see from the vision of being outside the culture, you can actually see what the agreements are. And those are really helpful in being able to slide our point of view from a fixed position to a much more mobile position. Um, and, talking about that, I was just wondering, you know, how did you come into your work as a healer? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you do as part of your healing work, where it started out.
Thank you. Well, where it started out was that in 1982, I, was just kind of bumbling along and thought I had everything I needed to get on with the rest of my life. And and for some reason, I was attracted to go to this symposium in Washington, and many of the most wonderful healers from around the world were going to be there. But I didn't know that because I wasn't that steeped at that time in that knowing and in that information. But I went, and there was a woman named Dolores Krieger who developed therapeutic touch, and in fact was the
Wow.
person who initially brought healing touch into the hospitals. And she did a workshop on feeling energy, how you could feel your energy field. And I couldn't feel anything. But, then the hour was over and I went on to the next offering. And later in the day, I was in a, a section with Pir Vilayat Khan, who was a
Oh,
wonderful
wow.
Sufi,
Yeah.
right? And so he led us in a meditation, and it was about opening your heart. And I remember being there and just tears just pouring out of my eyes. And and at that moment, what I thought was, I bet I can feel my energy field now. And I did this, and I could feel it, and that was it. I mean, I was hooked.
Wow.
And anyone, and I took her, day long workshop afterwards, and then just immediately took off. It was like, this is just the most wonderful thing. And don't tell me that you have a headache, because I'll say, please sit down right now and let me work on it. But
Wow.
anything. And so I just really embraced it, and then took some other workshops. And in '84, I became a massage therapist. But I felt somewhat frustrated because I could sense that things were going on deeply inside the body that I couldn't reach through massage. And
Mm.
so I hooked up with John Upledger and Cranial-Sacral Therapy, which turned out to be just the most magical work. It's extremely based in anatomy, which I love. And
Right.
you can, through the understanding, you can go anywhere in the body and help people release things, or anyway. And that's actually what led me into the dolphin work, and so on and on. So
Wow.
yeah.
There's so many things that you just said that, what's really fascinating, and those of you listening, if you've had some, extraordinary experiences with healing and with energy in a way that you didn't um, anticipate, please share, in your comments. But one of the things that's really fascinating is how, when you said in the beginning, when you went to take that workshop for an hour, you couldn't feel anything, and yet after something broke open your heart. So it's almost like you went from the head into the heart, and somehow that was like the key that opened your field. Is that
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, it did. It just cracked everything open, and it was an amazing moment for me. Yeah.
Wow. There's a place called the Heart Math Institute in California, and they talk often about how the intelligence is there's more wires going into our heart center than into the brain, and that they feel that it's the heart that drives actually the brain, not the other way around. And what's also fascinating is that it sounds like when your heart opened, it's almost as if your sensory organs also opened. Would that
Thank
be
you. Absolutely. It was like everything, something, something really open, and then I could actually be, and I think it might be, I was more intimately connected with my body and the sensations in my body than I was with the restrictions, you know,
mm-hmm,
with
mm-hmm,
with whatever it was. I don't even know. I didn't connect it with anything at all. It was just tears began pouring out, and it felt very wonderful. It felt very
right?
soothing. And then I just suddenly realized, like, here I am. I bet I can feel this.
Yeah. So there was an inner knowing, something. It wasn't just a sensory thing, but there was like an inner knowing, another way of knowing that suddenly opened up, right?
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
I wanted more of that.
Yeah.
Whatever that is,
Waiter, give me
I
more.
want more.
I totally understand it.
It was
Oh, there's
so.
Deborah Copeland who just mentioned, I've had many energetic experiences with your guest today. Eka is truly gifted, you know? So it's and then you also mentioned about cranial-sacral therapy, which is something that perhaps some of the people might not know what it is. Can you kind of briefly express um, what happens when you are receiving cranial sacral therapy? What is it based on? What's happening with you as you're giving the healing work?
Oh, I would be happy to, because
Yeah.
it is truly healing like no other thing I've ever experienced. And the idea is that the lighter touch I use, the more accurately I can sense what's happening in your body, because there's no need to resist me, you know? And let me say, I'm a massage therapist. I love massage. I did massage for 28 years before my hands burned out. I love it. So I recognize the value in that. And really, for me, really doing this extremely deeply healing work, this gave me the opportunity to reach into a level down to one cell, if it was one cell that needed to be communicated with. And so the touch is extremely light. It's almost like a silk handkerchief just kind of dropping down. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, and so the person on the table feels it as very deeply relaxing, very deeply relaxing. And often they go into a place that's not quite um, a conscious, not quite, ordinary conscious, but not asleep. So
Right.
their awareness is very heightened of little things, and they might even have memories arise or different sensations arise. Um, and then also there's certain aspects that are more that you do use greater pressure to release tissue, but you do it in a way that is working with the tissue. So they say it's the weight of a nickel on your finger. So, we meet whatever pressure is needed and then add that 5 grams, which is just a little eeny bit. And then the body seems to understand this is how I now have an opportunity to release these restrictions that have been stuck here. And so it moves into a pattern. It shifts either in a very small area, or it can be a whole body where someone feels
Mhm.
their whole body is changing. And when something releases that way, it does not come back. It's just
Yeah.
fascinating. So, and
Yeah.
you're
Uh-huh.
working at every level. It's really, we're accessing body, mind, spirit, soul. We're really where all of that meets. So I found it to be the most wonderful, wonderful therapy.
Wow. No, that's fascinating
Yeah.
because it really reminds me of this whole principle that I work with when I'm working with a client. And it's that everything in life, when the restrictions or the blockages are taken away, that the flow of life within oneself or even within nature is always moving towards wholeness and healing. The word to heal comes from the word to make whole again, and that life inherently moves towards wholeness. And I um, I got that message. I think I told you before, but I had this ovarian cyst, and it was one of these very solid ovarian cysts that all the doctors said I needed to remove right away. And I didn't want to go into surgery. And so I looked for a healer. I used to live in Paris, and I found a healer who did work with energy of earth and stones. And she had two other people that she worked with. She never touched me. She would have me hold different stones, which did all the work. She worked with an herbal person, and they all used pendulums. And I was like, "Oh no, I'm with a bunch of quacks." But it was actually amazing. It opened up my mind and my field because I could actually feel what was going on. And the third person in the mix was sort of like cranial therapy, but again, it was incredibly light touch. But my body would start moving on its own, and I had no idea what was going on. I said, "What's happening?" Because I was lying on the table, and he had his hands right underneath my shoulder blades, and it was just incredibly light touch, and my whole body just started moving on its own. And I remember I was only in my mid-20s or something, and he said something that I felt very flattered. He said, "You have, this is a French guy, you have such beautiful cells." And I said, "Oh, I do." And he said, "You have
Hmm.
such beautiful cells." And he said, "All I'm doing is just letting your cells that are stuck get unstuck, and they now know which way to go. And that's why you are, they're healing themselves because and that's when he said, everything in life moves towards wholeness." And that's what, just came to me. And my ovarian cyst disappeared within a couple of months. And when I went back to all the medical doctors, they just couldn't believe it. They decided that there was a mistake in the sonogram, which was not true because I'd taken about 6 different sonograms with about 6 different doctors, and they all came with the same. And that's when I knew that yes, healing can happen. That the energy within our bodies, within the cells, within all the different, from the very very subtle to the very dense. The yogis talk about the 5 sheaths, but from an incredibly subtle energy field, and the physical is the densest energy field, that when we can connect all of those, and that everything is in the flow of how it wants to be, and the blockages, whether it comes from a mental blockage, emotional blockage, trauma, different toxins that we put into our body through food, through words, through what we eat. And what we eat isn't just food, it's everything, the air qualities as well. um, when we can remove those things that fix or block the cells or our energy field, that healing starts to happen. So that's yeah,
It is
very,
so
very powerful.
true. It's so true.
Yeah.
And yes, you do have beautiful cells, and the way you explained it was also so beautiful. Um, I realized when I first started doing massage that on one level, it didn't, how I actually moved the muscle didn't make much of a difference. Just
Mm.
the fact that it moved in a different direction meant that it would come back in a better place. And that
Oh, that's fascinating.
it's
Okay.
exactly what you're talking about, that bodies, minds, spirits, it all wants to move towards wholeness.
Mhm.
And there's that energy that's moving through us all the time doing that. We're healing ourselves all the time. And
Yeah.
it takes a tremendous amount of energy to not heal, which is why some people, women in particular, walk around exhausted all the time because they
Yep.
haven't had the opportunity or the right people to help them to really access that healing and let themselves experience more of what naturally happens.
That's so true because part of the shamanic work that I do is in recovering energy that's been blocked in past traumatic events.
Mhm.
And it takes, as you said, it takes an enormous amount of energy to hold down life energy and to maintain certain beliefs that's come through to us because of different events, and to keep those things in place, we have to delegate so much energy that after a while we're left with very little energy that we can function with. And it's yes, to keep something blocked. I mean, just think of a dam, right? A dam, it's a huge energetic structure to maintain all that water to stop it from flowing. And it's a lot of energy that we lose in blocking the natural flow of things. Yeah.
So true. It is so true.
I
Yes.
want to hear more about this dolphin thing, though. I love dolphins. I swam with dolphins. It's just, but tell us about your experience with dolphins.
Well, the Upledger Institute has, which is the group that I study craniosacral therapy with. They're kind of the big international group that leads trainings, and really they're doing amazing, remarkable work, bringing and really leading edge information to therapists
Mm.
all around the world. It's remarkable. And so um, the man who developed it, John Upledger, who's since passed away, he he was a he was in the Coast Guard, and they were out in the open water, and a bunch of guys that were on the boat said, "Oh well, let's go for a swim. Let's jump in the water." And what they didn't know was that he was actually terrified to be in the water, and
Oh,
so
wow.
and so when he and he said what happened was a dolphin came and like helped him and helped support him. And this was a wild dolphin. And it just like never, I'm just getting chills even telling this story, but because
Oh,
I've also had experiences like you with wild dolphins. Anyway, it really made him think about, the aspects of what it is that dolphins are marvelously willing to support us. It's really incredible that they are so interested in helping us. And so he, over time, they began working with a dolphin facility down in the Bahamas, and it was created by the first dolphin that was there was Cocoon, who was in the movie Cocoon.
oh, yes.
And it was started by, so Ron Howard had this dolphin. I think they did things differently back then, and said, can you take care of this dolphin? And so that was how this facility started. And I hope I have that information correct. But anyway, I did work with Cocoon over the years, and her daughter and her daughter's daughter, and And so what we do is clients or patients, they may have something that they feel is wrong, that they're ill, or they may simply want to experience more of what life has to offer. And so we meet with them down in the Bahamas. We work with them on the table, and then we take them to this dolphin facility. And the dolphins come, and we're standing on a platform just about maybe 4 feet deep, and we support, the therapists support the client. And the dolphins come in, and I don't know what they do. They do sonar, they use magnetics, they use water flow. I will tell you one quick story about a little boy who came who was 5. And he had been developing normally, but when he was 2, he had a very high fever, and they went to the emergency room, and he was um, given 5 um, spinal taps, which is a horrible thing to do to such a tender young body.
Wow, yeah.
And he ended up having a severe injury and was unable to speak, and his development just totally went awry. And so I actually got to be his therapist or one of his therapists, because we work in teams, when we first went in with the dolphins. And so normally we put our hands in, and we support the client. We support the client any way we can,
Uh-huh.
by their feet or by their head, and wait to see what the dolphins will, what they do.
And the
And
clients are kind of floating in the water,
it's salt water.
supported.
It's very
Okay,
warm. It's the Bahamas in the summertime, so the
right.
water is almost body temperature. It's very warm. It's very soothing. And this facility it's cut out of the ocean. So it has ocean water, there's fish, there's birds, you're really in nature, right?
Mm.
And so, and there are different dolphins that are throughout the facility in different areas doing different things. But we will have 2, maybe 3 or 4 dolphins assigned to us. And so they're in our area, and we're supporting them. And then they come in, and they use their magnetics. They will often beam energy, and I've watched them time and time again go directly to the one point on someone who had an injury, where their injury was, and
Wow.
they send energy through. So if we're talking about opening up an energy pattern, there's nothing quite like this. So the sonar that dolphins can emit is 50 up to 52 times stronger than what they use in hospitals to break up a kidney stone.
Wow.
I know, it's amazing. So they really can send, but of course they moderate when they're with us. Anyway, this little, 5-year-old boy, were supporting him, and a dolphin came up and came right up under him and went exactly to the point of the spinal tap,
Oh,
and
wow.
just stood, waited and waited, and was just beaming energy through him. And by the end of 4 days, he was, in fact, it might have been after the end of the second or third day, he was standing there going, "Bird, bird." He was actually beginning to
Speaking.
communicate in a very different way than he ever had, than he had. And I've seen people come in a wheelchair. One young woman who I've worked with many times came in a wheelchair, and by the end of 4 days, that fourth morning, she was so cute. She had a little skirt on. I think she was about 13 or 12 at the time, and she was just walking around the group meeting with her little skirt, like, look at me, and
Wow.
it's it can be truly seem like a miracle. And I've seen that again and again and again. So obviously it's not a miracle. There's something going on there that is
Yeah.
worth paying attention to, right?
Absolutely, because then that comes to this thing about um, how some of these healing modalities are seen by the medical profession or the scientific profession as something that is not science, um, that is not real. And we were talking about that, how science is important. However, science is only measurable by the instruments that we've been able to come up with. And you know
Right.
nature, it made me think of Swami Rama, who started the Himalayan Institute in Pennsylvania, who would be able to go into all these different mental states and at will. And so when he first came to the States, he went down to an institute down south. The name of the institute just escapes me, and they were really excited to put electrodes on him, and they could measure all these wavelengths. And then he realized that the machine wasn't good enough to measure all the different states of awareness, consciousness that he could go into. So he lost interest and he left, But so that our capacity to measure is not the capacity of the universe. And and your experience with the dolphins is so much like that. That's amazing.
Yes. And there's such a I'm trying to think of the right word. It's denial, but um, and one level there's a great hypocrisy around that because doctors use sonograms, they do EEGs, they do MRIs. They're using energy to do all kinds of things. So why would they deny that energy is useful, just because it's done by a person rather than a machine? I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
science definitely has some catching up to do with itself. And you might know that back in the 80s or 90s, the people who um, discovered neurotransmitters, which we all accept now, they actually kept it undercover for 10 years
Oh
because
wow.
they were afraid that they would be laughed out of science. Because the
Right.
idea that something could instantly be known throughout the body without a direct linear, Newtonian
Right.
chain response was just inconceivable. And so, and now, of course, we know and accept neurotransmitters,
Yeah.
and so much of physics tells us so much that a lot of other aspects of science go poo poo. It's silly.
Yeah.
And why should we even have to? And Deborah Copeland and I have talked about this. Why should we even have to think that we have to explain that? Yes, I'm a healer, but it's woo. They call it woo, like woo woo, right? Why should I even have to explain that I'm also, grounded, and also, I also love science, that all of this can work together, that it doesn't have to be separate. I want to
Absolutely.
change. I want to change the discussion so that we can have these kind of discussions and not even have to consider whether somebody else in our society approves it or not.
That's and that comes to like the crux of our conversations, actually, because it's we have to shift. We need to be able to shift, and I feel that it's so important to be able to start to expand our awareness of what reality is, and to be able to break out of the prison that we've put ourselves into, um, which comes due to all different sorts of things. But as we spoke in the very beginning, healing is innate. in each one of us. And this capacity to connect with the subtle realms, we'll call it subtle because it's not gross in terms of we can't see it. And there's only so much of it that science can measure because the measuring apparatus hasn't caught up with all of the different energies that are out there. You know, somebody said, well, you can't see it. It's not real. And I said, well, love. Do you believe in love? And they said, well, I said, well, you can't see it. You can feel it, but can you show me? Can you show me? You know, this
Right.
is love. This is a cup, you know, like,
Right.
but it exists. So does anger. So does all of these energies, you know? And
Experience. It's like our
yes,
experiences matter.
yes,
If only what we can put on a scale or put a ruler to matters, it would be a very sad world. You know,
yeah,
our human experience matters.
yes. And the capacity to dream and to envision and to imagine or visualize. Oftentimes in my healing work, I have people visualize and they go, well, I don't know if I just made that up or if that's something that I really experienced when I take them on a journey, for example, you know? And I go, it doesn't really matter. You know, that difference doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you are actually receiving something or whether you are imagining it because they are very similar capacities.
Right.
Um, and it's it signals our entire system to be able to open up to a much bigger um, world. You know, I hesitate to use the word reality, but you know, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your work now of taking women out into nature, because I have a sense that it's something also about this, right? About connecting with the energetic realms that coexist in our everyday mundane lives.
It is. And, I want to just circle back before we go there for just a second to,
Okay.
because I also would have people saying, well, maybe I just imagined it. And it's like, well, if you imagined it, there's so many, you can imagine a million different things.
Hmm.
That's what you imagined,
Yes.
and like you're saying, they've shown that in terms of the brain and physiology, there is not, if you imagine it, it is as though your body is doing it. So
Yes.
just to, agree, add more to what you're saying about that, it's absolutely the case. So, um, yeah. Okay, women in nature. Well, look at you. Who wouldn't want to be there, right? um, this all started for me when I had a client who had suffered tremendous um, uh, illnesses and difficulties. And anyway, to make a long story short, who that what triggered it was someone told me, I'm not sure that there's a God. I don't feel like I've ever experienced God. And I said, well, we have to go out in the woods then. And so we did. And I showed her how to allow her body, what we're just talking about, allow her senses and her body and her experience to move through the woods in a very different way than we ordinarily do, where we're just thinking, oh, that's pretty, I want to walk over there.
Hmm.
Where it actually becomes a full body experience of feeling your feet on the ground and how when you step over to this part of the earth, it feels different. And when you step over there, it feels different. And just what you're saying too about the imagination, if you can't see it, well, you can step into these different places, and the sensations that you have in your body are completely different. And
Yes.
it, and it really was like nature just opened up and showed her this incredible story. Um, and so I realized that I just wanted to do much more of this. And so I began to merge it with some other work that I do. I call that program Nature Your Soul.
Nice.
And it's very powerful. As you know, being in nature, it's a direct way to change a body, mind, and spirit. Very direct,
Mhm.
and it's so gentle. It does it in such a gentle, soft way, right? It's like it just moves you. It moves you. And
Yeah.
so, a few years ago, Mikao Usui came to me in a vision and asked me to begin to bring in a different form of Reiki, one that was based in nature, where the hierarchy of student and master dissolves, and instead you become attuned by nature. And so we're all equal. And so that has been a really interesting thing to put together. And I'm currently in teaching a 4-month program of Second Nature Reiki, where I'm really teaching people um, receive, how to receive from nature, how to create sacred space in nature, how to feel what the truth feels like versus what, let's say what you were calling our mind, what we think we're supposed to
Mhm.
believe feels like, but what does it actually feel like in our body, the truth? And then allowing nature to really um, work with us, and it's been remarkable. So
Yeah.
far, we're a little more than halfway through, and everyone is saying that they feel like they're so much more aware of what's happening around them, and they can take in the wonderful energy of nature so much more, and they're just calmer and more peaceful. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's really powerful. And so people can find out more about it by going to your website,
yes,
thedreamweaverway.com.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's wonderful because we're
Yeah.
starting to get close to the towards the end of our hour. But you
Oh,
know, when you're talking about um, nature, and it really made me think about, I call all of this the goddess energy. And the reason why I use the word goddess is because one of it is because so much about how we've been introduced to the divine or to God was that God was he was somewhere up there, you know, and not here, and that everything was about ascending or transcending, was to get out of here and to somehow be in the heavenly realms. And for me, the greatest part of healing has come by becoming really fully embodied, of actually going deeper into my embodiment. And part of, and so in so that to me is like the great mother. We come from the mother, from the womb, we've been carried, and this sense that the divine or the goddess is with us. It's not, she's not separate, and that the body is not something that is a place of hardship and dross and sin and all of these things
right.
that comes with a lot of the religious educations, and to reclaim our innate connection with the great mother, with nature, with this web of life that is actually our family, our support system, and it's our village. You know, it's very difficult to exist completely separated from all of our connections, all of our support systems. And I feel that part of the reason why, when we walk into nature and we soften and we open to receiving and the exchange of energy, it's just like, and it's so healing because it's like coming back into the into the loving fold of friends and family who really support us and care about us and create a circle around us. And we open to receiving that love instead of blocking it off, saying, you don't exist. I'm all by myself. And returning to nature, returning to the pathway of Goddess for me is really about coming back into that natural state of relationship, that we are part of this enormous web of life, that we are all responsible for each other, meaning that we have the ability to respond to each other. And that's something that is so vital right now in our world, I feel.
I could not agree with you more. And I think it's really what we were designed to be. We were
Yeah,
designed, I mean, we were, this is what we're meant to be. It's
yeah,
only very recently that we've become so separated. And just the fact that when you ask somebody what's nature, they'll often say out there, not
yeah,
like I am also part of nature,
yeah,
not like
yeah,
all. So I don't, I couldn't, I love what you said about that. Yes.
yeah. It's just that we're getting closer to, so please, if you are listening, I'm so sorry that we got kind of carried away with our conversation, but if you are watching this and listening, and if you have any questions or comments or things that you have experienced, please share in the comment box. This is a conversation that I feel is so important for all of us to have and to share. Um, and oh, you're so welcome, Jennifer. And Barbara Martin, oh, she said, so hello, lovely ladies. And Jennifer Rose, thank you so much. Beautiful discussion. Thank you. And, to keep this conversation open and going, and that we know a lot more than we think we do when we drop into our bodies and our hearts, when we can listen with our entire skin and see with our bellies. Um, it's that we actually are part of this huge connection. Sarah, you're welcome. Sarah Tucker, thank you so much for sharing your conversation, and you're welcome. Um, so please, to find out more about Eka, please visit her at the dream www.dreamweavingway.com. Do you have any other workshops that are coming up, or things that are happening?
I would love to. Right now, I don't have anything. Um, I'm in the middle of the process of this, so I will be offering them in the future, not too distant future. But I would also love to, when we're done, to put a link to a 30-minute documentary about the dolphin program. And it's a wonderful little documentary that will explain some things, and I'm in it a lot.
Great. So everybody, once we have that link, we'll put it into the comments link for this live. So please keep your eyes and ears open for that. And I would also like to invite you who have been listening to coming to visit me at mygoddesspath.com. The way that I create connection is through a lot of rituals. Rituals comes from the word ritam, a Sanskrit word that means to be in the flow of, or to be in the rhythm, to readjust our rhythm, to be in sync with the cosmic rhythm. And so I do a full moon ritual, which is pre-recorded, so you can do it on your own. in the privacy of your own home. You get to journey each month with the energy of the full moon of the month. And then I'd also give seasonal rituals. The next one that's coming up is Litha. It's the summer solstice and the element of water. So we'll be really working with the element of the energy of dolphins, whales, seals, the water in our bodies, the underground waterways that are very much like the meridian systems in our bodies. So you can go and check that out as well. Any questions? So we have Cindy Catherine Geisel. Welcome, Cindy. Thank you, girls. I love to walk in nature and hug trees. Yes, yes. In Japan, they have the thing called Shinrin Yoku, or the forest bathing. And today I was out forest bathing because my little puppy woke me up at 5 in the morning and I hadn't slept well. And I was a wreck. And I stayed out there for half an hour and really felt restored, you know? And Nikolai, you're so welcome. I'm so glad that you were able to join. I feel confident opening just listening to you. So, you know, the conversation itself is really, really healing. And Jennifer, yes, the rituals are wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Anything that you would like to add, Eka, about?
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk with you. I'm used to being on the other side of, I'm used to being the interviewer. So this is very fun, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity that you brought me here to do this with you.
Oh, thank you. And I hope you'll be coming back, because I really, yeah, I really want to keep this conversation going. I will not have a guest every single week, but I intend to keep this this talk, this inquiry about the goddess and energy, about nature, about the cyclical and spiral movement of things, instead of this direct line of trying to achieve a goal all the time. I feel like that's only one part of this amazing adventure of life that we are all having. And it can be, yes, challenging at times. And at the same time, the challenges are oftentimes places where we are resisting to move forward in. And sometimes it can bring us forth, allow us to open or start to see things in a different way. You know, that capacity for very resilient point of view. So we're not stuck in one point of view all the time, but are able to see 360 degrees, you know? So hopefully you'll be able to join us and in more conversations. If you have any conversations, topics that you'd like to see introduced here, please write it in the comment box, and I'll see how I can address those. And thank you again, Eka. Thank you for a delightful, always delightful conversation.
Likewise, thank you so much. I just am thrilled that you're offering this and really changing the conversation and bringing this kind of awareness to everyone. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And it's maybe the dolphins that are sending out waves going, change the conversation.
Oh, yes, they definitely are. So. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Great. And again, thank you so much, Eka. And
thank you.
yes, thank you. And thank you, everybody,
thank you, everyone,
for taking the time to watch. Thank you. Bye-bye.